None of us ever has or will forget the courage and resolve of Representative Justin Pearson, the Tennessee state representative who was one of the 3 state reps who stood up for a common sense gun legislation in the Tennessee legislature after a 2023 mass shooting at a school left 6 people dead, 3 of them 9 years old. And what did the Republicans in control do? They expelled him. Then they backed down, and Pearson, a community organizer, a servant leader, ran again, and he easily won. Pearson ran for the office again, handily winning back the seat in August of 2023 with, how much of the vote you think he got? 70, 80, 94% of the vote. Pretty resounding, right? His advocacy and leadership inspired the Sierra Club to recognize him as the 2023 National Changemaker of the Year. And boy, did he deserve it. And the Root declared him one of the 100 most influential Black Americans in 2022. Inspiring, stalwart, so very, very glad that he is here. Let's give him a warm welcome.
There we go. How y'all doing? Y'all look beautiful. Look, back home in District 86, we start every rally the same way. And I just got to confirm, this is a rally, right? A rally for our environment, a rally for our climate, a rally for our planet and our future. Am I right? We start every way. I say one thing and then you say another. It's called call and response, like the black church. You with me? So I'll say, who fired up? And then you say, we fired up. You ready? Who fired up? Who fired up? Who fired up? Who fired up? Yes, we are fired up. We're fired up because we've got to be for such a time as this. We've got to be fired up when there's an assault on our freedoms. We've got to be fired up when there's somebody running for president of the United States who's talking about if the billionaires give him enough money, he'll destroy the entire planet. We've got to be fired up for such a time as this because we've got somebody on our side who is the most qualified person ever to run for president of these United States, Kamala D. Harris, and we are fired up to get her to the White House to swear that sacred oath on January 20th, 2025. We are fired up because we know what's at stake. And I am grateful to each and every one of you, to Chairwoman Dietrich, this entire council, Vice President Harris and her team, to my team who is here, my family, my fiance and our Chief of Staff, Oceanae R. Gilliam. Thank you. Y'all give her a round of applause. That's my baby and my best friend. Give her a real one. Give her a real one. Hardest working person I know. She started law school on Monday and had to skip the rest to be here with us because this movement is so strong and we have to keep this work going. Let's be honest about the problems that we have, talk shortly about what we can do about it, and then I'll be out of your way. I am indeed the son of a teacher and a preacher, but I won't hold you long. We are living in a moment and a time where the existential crises of our climate and the injustices that have perpetuated in our environment, particularly for black folk and poor white folk, and for indigenous communities and for rural communities, have for too often and too long been overlooked and dismissed. And we are dealing with a crisis now simply because 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago, when these plants were being placed into certain communities, certain people didn't speak up. If the same folk who throw in ketchup on paintings were paying attention to where the polluters were being placed 50, 60, and 70 years ago, we wouldn't be dealing with the climate crisis that we're dealing with now. What does this mean for us? If we pay attention to the people and the places that are oftentimes overlooked and underinvested in and not listened to, if we go into those cities, if we go into those counties, if we go into those communities, knowing that transformation is necessary through community power, and we use our power, our social location, and join forces together, we disrupt a status quo that hurts and harms the most marginalized, that hurts and harms those who have been made poor, and that hurts and that harms those who are already disproportionately dying from the polluters being put in their communities. Okay, somebody, y'all gonna catch this in 1 second, but give me a timeout. Let me thank Jane Klebb and Senator McKinney from Nebraska. Y'all, Nebraska, my second home. Nebraska is my second home, and Jane Klebb is one of the best pipeline fighters and energy makers and supporters that I know. I live in Westwood of Memphis, Tennessee. My family has been in Tennessee for 7 generations. And what we know is that in our community, we were redlined. We were forced to live there. And the factories built plants around the community. It has been decisions by policymakers and people that have perpetuated the pain that we, as a movement for justice, have to resolve. And when our community was faced with 2 multi-billion-dollar corporations trying to build the Byhalia pipeline through our neighborhood, they tried to destroy our drinking water, they took folks' land through eminent domain, we stood up. And we built a movement of black folks and white folks, of rich folks and poor folks, of people who didn't think it was their problem and people who knew it was their problem. We built what Heather McGhee calls the solidarity dividend. And what do we know when we fight? We win, and we defeated 2 multi-billion-dollar corporations, Valero Energy Corporation and Plains All American. We can do this. When we use our God hands, when we use our God feet, when we show up and give the best of our service to save what we know is sacred. And what we know about this election is that Vice President Harris's name is at the top of the ticket. We've got to get Governor Walz in there as vice president. But what is also on the ballot are amazing candidates like Gloria Johnson and Tony Vargas and others. But also are our issues. Our issues are on the ballot. On the ballot in this election is whether or not we will have access to clean air for everybody. What's on the ballot is whether or not we'll ensure clean water for everybody, no matter where they live in our country. What's on the ballot is whether or not we'll have clean soil to plant in. What's on the ballot is whether kids will no longer die from asthma on our watch because of the pollution that they have. What is on the ballot is whether or not we will end the pipelines that are being built across our cities and across our counties and across our states. What's on the ballot is whether or not we will have a climate and an environment that is just. And I know one thing about it. When we go to the ballot box, when we show up at the ballot box, we will be fighting not just for ourselves, but for our futures. And when we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. God bless you.
You rock. Thank you so much.